because the only thing that is permanent in this world is change. And unless or otherwise we are adaptable, we accept and we are adaptable to change, we will be no more. Like how they state, like it is not the strongest of the species that survives, it is the one that is most adaptable to change. That really Darwin has stated, Charles Darwin, he has stated that, and that's true. And the classic example for that I always look at is the chameleon. So for its survival, how quickly it's able to blend itself to the surrounding, so that it's able to protect itself, save from its predators. So that's
even if madam, they say that dinosaurs didn't survive because mammals survived, because dinosaurs didn't embrace the change.
Exactly.
Dinosaurs, yeah, mammals survived because they embraced the change.
Embrace the change. That's very true, sir. So like that, say like when the technology revolution came, so people who are at the age of 50 or 60, they were open that they wanted to know what it is, utilize it so that they can make their life comfortable. They were open for that. But there are still few people who tend to be a little bit resistant. So like my parents, they are about 77 years old. So initially they found it difficult using a smartphone, but now they have become very comfortable using it when they started realizing how all they can use it. But maybe little bit of training we'll have to keep on giving them now and then, so that they don't forget and they use it more effectively. So it's all the amount of hand holding that we will have to do. Similarly is what for change and for organization development. It is the leader, the vision that they have, and the team who works into, who need to understand and support or handhold their colleagues, their peers, so that the process of change happens very smoothly in the organization. So these are the few forces of change. One is greater diversity in the workforce. So people with different thoughts, ideas, culture, the way the systems and processes, the way how they look at talk, everything is likely to change. Say this generation, for them, they are very casual in addressing by say hi or be that. That's what it has to be accepted. And if they don't wish us good morning, it's fine. They will just say hi. You can just reply in that way. But that's what it is, and we'll have to accept it. We'll have to go by it and just not still expecting them to be the way how we were. And technology, it's faster, cheaper, mobiles, handheld devices, and entire gamut, like how best we could use technology that could make our life easier, and gadgets that could really help us. And then economic shocks. Say earlier when we were looking at the business cycle, they used to it repeats once in 5 years or 6 years, or at times even 10 years, depending upon the nature of the industry. But now we find business cycles in few industries occurring every year. And if they say like once it's a recession, the recession will be for 2 years or 3 years. But now it happens, it extends beyond 3 years. And then the boom or the maximum peak, again, it's likely to extend to about 1.5 or 2 years. But now it is only 3 months, 4 months or 5 months. We will never know where we are. So in such situations, and that's what we call it as VUCA. We are living in an VUCA world. So volatile, uncertainty, chaotic, and ambiguity is everywhere. So in such a situation, we need to be wide open to understand, smell what are the changes that are happening, and accommodate ourselves to that. So that's another important dimension that we will have to remember. And then competition. So it's all open. There is nothing like called a local market, a national market, a local market, a regional market, a national market. It's all the global market. Say, as far as when I was reading a report of Nestle, I found that it is hardly 3% of their revenue they get from the parent country, not even 3%. Somewhere around 2.7 to 2.8% of the revenue it comes from their parent country, Switzerland, from the operations from Switzerland. The rest is from all their overseas operations. And there are few products which are not available in the home country, but they are available elsewhere across the world. So, and unless or otherwise we are competitive, we are likely to lose our market, like how India lost in the textile industry at the global place. So Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Korea, South Korea, they are performing better when compared to Indians, especially when it comes to mass production. And also I found the quality to be good. The Bangladeshi t-shirts or the fabrics, I found it to be much better quality when compared to what is available in India. I'm sorry to mention that. So that's how I'm good quality at competitive prices. That's the way how they were able to grab their market share in the global market. And then the social trends. The importance that we will have to give to them, and the world politics, we call it as geopolitics. That's equally important to understand the role of geopolitics and how it is having an effect on the economy of the country. So once having identified from where change is likely to come, what are the factors, it's all like we need to prepare ourselves to plan and embrace the change. That is very, very important. And how do we do that? There is no other go, but it's all we will have to go by the way. So it's all the we need to have an open mindset, and little bit of support is what is required at the organizational end, and few people who would be the change agents or the leaders who will initiate and take all the employees with them, or all the people along with them, navigate through the change so that we achieve what has to be, and more important is how we stay there. So that becomes very important, and that's where the 3 steps of change process as suggested by Levin works out very perfectly. We will discuss that. So, and when we say change, the first thing what will come to it, or what we can hear from our peers, is the resistance to change. So the resistance to change is people not being open to accommodate themselves to the changes or to the transformations that is being brought about in the workplace, because it is natural. It is the natural tendency of the human being to resist to something new that comes across it. But it's all that resistance, it is good. So why? Because they have uncertainty or ambiguity. They have no clue of what is happening, how, what is that it is expected from them, how they should do that, so that where they will be at the end of a particular period. What is that is expect, in short to say, what is expected out of them. So when that clarity is not there, is where the resistance to change comes. Say, especially when all the banks, when they started computerizing, so the older employees, they or not even the older employees, many of the employees felt that they were against this. The simple reason was they thought that computers computerization can lead to downsizing in the organization. So they might have to they might lose their jobs. So that was the only fear that they had, for which they were resisting. And maybe when people understood that it is likely to simplify their job, make their job easier, they would be able to offer little more wide range of services to the customers. So more resources flowing in, more of operations. So by the banks, the opportunity for the bank also to expand and grow its business becomes higher, they started accepting. And they also did little bit of restructuring internally, where those who are older enough, they did not compel them or force them, and they gave jobs which they can manage with minimum interface, computer interface, or with no. So just keep on doing the jobs what they could do in their way. In no way it's going to affect this. And training was also given in a phased manner. So it's all about how we communicate. So communication is one main tool that we will have to use when we are going in for change. And resistance will come in different forms. So engaging in different job actions, voicing complaints, people might leave, less motivation, errors or mistakes, all that is fine, but everything it could be set right. And these are the different sources of change. This would and the most important topic related to change would be the Kurt Levin's 3-step change model. So he was the pioneer in this, and very 3 simple steps, though you also have a 5-step or a 6-step model, but these 3 steps are very powerful, very easy to implement. So unfreezing, moving, and refreezing. So unfreezing, in what we have to do in unfreezing is, these are the 3 steps that we will have to adopt when we are bringing about a change in an organization. So in unfreezing, we'll have to make people overcome the pressure or the fear and the resistance that they have from within and also from the group through which they are associated. Why will the resistance come? Because of fear. So the fear is there is lack of clarity of what has to be done, how it has to be done, when it has to be done. So it is like more of hand holding them, offering training to them, talking to them what is the need for this, so that it is okay even if you have to repeat 100 times or 1,000 times. Yet keep on talking and communicating to them so that they understand, they accept how this change is going to be beneficial for them, for the organization, in what way their role is likely to be changed, what are the changes that we are bringing in, how their work is likely to get reduced, or the scope for your job enlargement and enrichment. All those when you explain, and when they get that clarity, they will support you. So that is what we'll have to do it in unfreezing. And once if we have done all this, then we will employ few people who would be the change agents or the pioneers or the leaders who would be initiating the process of change and moving on and taking it along. So step by step, they will have a very clear plan or a chart that is laid out and communicated. So this would be the first period. Say 5 periods, we will implement it in 5 different phases. So in the first phase, we will take up this particular department. Say for example, ERP. When they are implementing in organizations, not in one stretch, they implement across the organization. Say they go it in a step-by-step phased manner. So the first phase where they would be implementing ERP is normally in the sales and marketing end. So that becomes easy for them. And once if they get the input from the marketing team is what, then they go for the planning team, the production team, and later to the stores. So once it is done, then they go to the HR, and then they go to customer relationship management, and finally it's what it comes to the finance department. So when they tell that these are the 3 stages in which we will go. In the first stage, we will implement ERP only to these 3 departments. We will just work on for 2-3 months, see that everything is set there, train all the employees how it has to be done, what are the difficulties, if mistakes happen, how that could be corrected, where we can have checkpoints to ensure that it doesn't go wrong. Once it is completed, then go to the next department. So once if you go in a phased manner, people mostly interact with everyone. So it will help them. That phase will help them to understand how easy it is and how it's helping them and making their job easier. And it also depends on the importance or significance of the department, and where more operations are there or more care is what it has to be taken. So like that, when we go it in a phased manner, it spreads across the organization what it is, how it is, and then it becomes a very, very smooth process. So that you implement it across all the departments. And once if you have implemented it across all the departments, then the most important step is refreezing. So refreezing is wherever we have implemented, all have found it, all have started using it. And maybe if you are applying it for a leave or if you are placing an order, we will have to make it clear that we will never ever go back to the earlier system of sending an email or sending a paper or talking across, informing over phone. All those we will not allow that to happen. So we will just go ahead or move. Everything will be only through ERP. You want 2 new recruits for it, so send a note to the HR. So the HR will then communicate to whoever is concerned and then take all the required steps, and the 2 people would be recruited and given. So no more reverting back to the earlier system of communication or the process that we had. That is more important. So once if we don't do that, and then the entire process efforts that we took is likely to get wasted or it will become futile. So that once if it is reached and people will feel comfortable, of course it will take time, maybe at times a year or even 2 years, it's fine. But we'll have to keep on monitoring and harping and see that it's all set. And then that stage, we have moved from level 0 to level 5. And in level 5, we will maintain. So after 2 or 3 years, when everything is stabilized, then from level 5, we will try to move on to level 10. Again, the process of change would be brought into. So that's how we go it in a step-by-step, phased manner with lot of communication, hand-holding, support, talking to people, convincing them, form teams where they could discuss among themselves, help each other, peers who would help or assist others to navigate through that, so that the change becomes successful. So this is very, very critical. And once you will have champions who would be leading through the process of change. So identifying the right champion is very critical for bringing in a successful change in the organization. So hope it's clear, friends. The process of managing change, though we have other methods, but I personally feel that this applies in all situations. Shall we move to the next topic?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, thank you. So, and when we are unfreezing it, you will have 2 types of forces. One is the driving force and the restraining force. The driving force is the one that will make us, push us to go through the stage of change. That we'll have to be a part of it and undergo the change or transformation that is required. But that would be restraining forces from the other end. It could be from within, or it could be from a few of the peers also who don't have a clarity, or they have their own fears, or by nature they are so to resist. But it's all how we try. The driving force should be stronger than the restraining force. Only then we would be able to gradually navigate through and reach the desired stage. So this is very tough. So maybe how many times should I keep on telling them? How many times should I keep on teaching them? It is okay. I'll do that till I'm achieved. Like there is a small video I think most of us would have come across, and it's a conversation between a teenager son or a little bit older son and his father who is old. Like he was asking him like how to use a smartphone, and then each time he forgets and he just keeps on asking him, after this what should I do, after this what should I do. So the son, he gets angry and tell, how many times I'll have to tell you? I have told you 10 times. So why can't you remember and do this on your own? If not, like when I have time, I will teach you. So then the father said, like when I was teaching you how to drive a bicycle or the way how you are tying your shoelace, I have taught you 40 times and I have repeated 100 times how it has to be done. So that is the strength of the driving force. So it has to be persistent, continuous, small steps, so that we would be easily able to navigate through the process of change. And then organization development. So it is through the process of change, organization development, it can be achieved. So organization development is a collection of planned interventions that we build upon so that it helps to improve the effectiveness of the organization and also the well-being of the employees. So it's like, if you look at this picture, I found it really interesting. So some of us would be easily will be able to move or accept, navigate and move across the change, but there are few who will take a little more time to navigate through. So how are you going to help them? By lending your support, and so that all three are at the same level or pedestal. The entire process of how we support and do that is done through OD, is taken care through OD, organization development, so that the employees' requirements, needs are taken care, as well as the organization, like how we discussed yesterday, achieving a high performing organization, a learning organization, all those happens so that the organization is able to grow, become stable, become more effective, consistent results it's able to produce, and it's able to have a competitive edge over its competitors, superior when compared to all others of its competitors. So that's very important. And so in few organizations, they also have a person who has been deputed as organizational change or OD interventionalist. So where their job would be only to is to bring about change and development in the organization. In each and every functional area, they will look into functional departments, the system and processes. They will keep on working what has to be done so that it helps for the benefit or for the betterment of the organization, including restructuring the organizational hierarchy. So they might make it flat, they might become lean, but how it is done and why it is done, and the entire process, they take it very smoothly. That's very essential. Restructuring, it has to happen once in 5 years for the betterment or for the benefit of the organization. So the core values of OD are respect for people. We understand that humans, they are emotional. They need to be handled empathetically. You will have to respect each one. Not all 5 fingers are the same, but all 5 different people are required. People with differences are required in the organization so that they all will be able to work together as a team. So that the power each finger has, together when we utilize them, it will be able to do so much of work and so much of miracles. Similarly, organization are, but due respect for each and every individual in the organization should be given. That is very important, that we should never miss, whoever be that. right from the gatekeeper, the security, till the CEO and the managing director. That's very, very important. And higher level is okay by virtue of the position we give, but more important is to the one that we will have to give it at the lowermost level. So they are, at times they become the pillars of support for the organization. The trust and support that you get from them, power equalization, not giving scope for power and politics to play at the play in the organization. Confrontation, if there are difficulties, take it openly, face it, navigate, break the overcome the storm, so that whatever is it, we would be able to have a solution. Like how they say, if one plan doesn't work, we will just look for another plan, because there are 26 alphabets. So we can keep on making plan after plan till then we achieve what we want to. And then participation, engaging or involving all the people. So lastly, we will just look up these 6 OD techniques. 6 OD techniques are there. So the first is the sensitivity training or the T group training. So where they identify a small group and just find out or tell them like what are the change in behavior that is sought from them through unstructured group interactions. So it is like more of interaction with others, knowing better about others as well as self, increased awareness about self as well as others. And I thought I should share with you. We have something called mindfulness. Maybe after this, I'll touch upon the topic for about just 2 minutes. So why it is important to have awareness of self and others? It's more important so that you get to know what you are able of, what you are capable of, what you are interested in doing about, and also others, so that you would be able to match with the wavelength of others and work in a team. And more important is having empathy towards others, listening, the sense of openness and tolerance, it will increase. So it's small group of people, we use an unstructured method of interaction to gain self-awareness, also with respect to awareness of others. So that's the objective of using sensitivity training, or we also call it as T group training. And then the next is
ma'am.
Yes,
ma'am, can you give one example of that sensitivity training, if possible, please?
Okay, say let us say I'll quote the example that happened in our institution, so that it would be easier for me to explain it in all dimensions. So we decided to go in for ACBSP international accreditation. Somewhere in 2014, we decided that we would go in for international accreditation. And so a 5-member team was formed. And the director and the management said, okay, this 5-member team will take up the process of obtaining international accreditation for the institution. So that's it. It was left open for us. So, and then we started identifying, so what is the systems and processes that is required for the international accreditation. That becomes one end. And the other end is what is the systems and processes that are in practice in the organization, where there is a gap between these two. Where there is a gap between these two, what is that we need to do or bring about changes in our institution so that it matches the expectations or the requirements of the international accreditation and how it has to be done. So it was no formal group, it was just mostly discussing among the 5 members. Okay, this is what is expected, this is what they have asked, but we don't have that. Say, for example, there is a system where you will have to listen to the stakeholders, seek feedback from them, and build that feedback into the educational systems and processes. So we had a system of listening, but it was not a structured system. It was not a structured system. We did not have surveys, or we did not have a proper way by which how the feedback we sought was documented. So it was that here and there, maybe from the governing council, from the academic advisory board, from the industry people, whatever it was, we were able to document, but not from all the other stakeholders. Okay, then we thought, like, what is that we need to do? Design survey forms and then share it across with the shareholders, so that let them give their feedback. We will see what is that it could be implemented. So it is like we discussed a lot, we interacted, we sought to the ideas of others, and then we finally narrowed down this is what will work out. So, and then having identified this is what is required, and we will have to get a survey from so-and-so stakeholders, then we explain to all the other colleagues of ours, and then we started, once we have finalized, then we shared with them and sought inputs from them, and then delegated work to them. So once it becomes a formalized, so a structure or a hierarchy, things will never work. But once, when at times when we leave it free, open, more of discussions happen, and it really helps to address problems.
Thank you, ma'am.
So hope I was able to answer your question, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much, ma'am.
And then the team, whoever we had, the 5-member team, we started involving all the other colleagues also in for each of the responsibility that we had. So when it comes to alumni, we have designed the structure. Then we sought the help of the alumni coordinator to implement it, to communicate to the alumni, to bring them all for a meeting, for a discussion. That happened once. So similarly, placement, all the recruiters. So what we are doing, why we are doing, and then sought their support. Parents, similarly. So like that, with each and every stakeholder, once it was designed, and then it really, through the help of others, we were able to extend it. And it was really so successful. We never thought, like, maybe when the committee, they gave their feedback on 3rd day on the strengths, only then we realized, oh, these are the things that they are looking as the strengths of the institution. Because for us, we thought, okay, it's just like what we have been doing it. So only when someone else is able to point out, these are the exceptional things, extraordinary things that you are doing, these are the strengths of the institutions, then it helped us to really understand where we are standing, and how all the systems and processes we have developed across the years has really helped us reach that particular level. And also the weaknesses, what they pointed out, they call it as opportunities for improvement. Certain things we do understand, but it's beyond our limits. So we thought, like, leave out the opportunities for improvements. Where we are strong, we will keep on strengthening on that. So that's how. And then one initiative that they very much appreciated was the MBA Plus program that we are offering. Say, we tend to identify from amongst the 120 students who are interested, whom we identify as those who have the potential for leadership, and they are willing to be groomed, and then we identify and groom them. So it becomes a big process, like first checking with the students who are interested to be groomed as students of MBA Plus, as future leaders. And after that, seeking their willingness, we conduct an assessment test for them, a lengthy assessment test. And then after the assessment test, we consolidate the scores, and from the scores, we find out whether there is any differences across the different dimensions we are examining. From the scores, we shortlist students, and then we have a personal one-to-one interview, maybe for about half an hour with each of the student, to go in depth and to test whether really are there a material for MBA Plus. Do they really have the potential? And having identified that set of students through this process, we provide them additional inputs for 2 years on different dimensions or topics. So this unique approach was very well appreciated by all the members of the accreditation team, because none of the institutions, they had this. Why we did this was, one, if you look at our vision, it is developing leaders. So to develop leaders, not all we would be able to do, but we thought at least we will go in with a handful. So first we started with 8, and then it became 12, and now it was 13. So like that, every year we are trying to add in more, but we'll have to be convinced that they really have the potential. So this becomes one of our best practice.
Madam,
Yes, sir.
Madam, actually, I'll tell you, in older organization, I think so. In older organizations, to bring even if a small change, it's very difficult, because I can give an example of it. Like in our institute, it's a 20-year-old institute. So, I mean, earlier in our canteen, there were actually some contractual employees used to be there, but then always the senior professors, they used to fetch the food through that contractual employees. We wanted to reduce that. So
Okay.
we felt that we wanted that all students, and even if the faculty members, whoever, will go to the canteen and will have their food during the break. But it happened like, so there was initially a lot of resistance, and the sensitivity training, like we had to reduce it to 2. I mean, so we had to create a wall in canteen, that this is the faculty area, this is the student area. Then still it was very difficult to bring even a small change of canteen serving at the faculty room, and going them to the canteen to have their food. So it is really very difficult in old organizations.
Old organizations and as well as new organizations. The reason is we have been used to doing it in a particular way. So when that is available, why should I go for that? So that's the natural kind of resistance. So once you say that I'll have to do, I'm a senior person, you expect me to go to the canteen, pay, buy, and then sit and eat and come? Why can't someone fetch it here?
Exactly.
So it's all like the policies, it has to be put in at place right from the top till the bottom.
Exactly. It is very tough.
I think you're right. Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I think it is not the matter of old organization or new organization. It is about the mindset, understanding the organizational goals and the intention that why this change is, brought about. I mean, that understanding, if it is clear through these sensitivity trainings and consultation approaches, then I think it will be easier to implement.
Implemented. That's very true, ma'am. Like what we did was, last year we have we all have smart identity cards. So like we brought in a system, like we will go in for cashless across the institution, be it at the library or the stores or the canteen, wherever you will have to make payment. We insisted that no cash, only through ID cards. So how much ever you want, you can just give your number and you can load it in your ID cards. And wherever you go, you just goes it free, cashless. You just swipe your ID card, whatever you want, you can buy. So initially there was a lot of resistance from people. If I load 200 rupees in my ID card, my money will go. Someone will take away my money. So such resistance was there from the faculty as well as the students. And then we said we will not entertain cash transactions. The moment we said that, then everything fell in place. So like first we started. So the senior most, all the heads of the departments, we said like, let's start with the heads of the departments. All the heads of the departments, you load our ID cards and use it for all the transactions. And then when they started doing it, all the department people also, they started doing it, and it percolated to the students also. So it's all like the senior most, when we are able to text them, the rest it becomes very easy.
True, madam. Only what I said, only in older organization, they are used to do that for years together. I mean, it is actually, I mean, that is the only difficulty, because they are doing it for maybe 10 years for longer time. So all of a sudden, when you are trying to change that process, so I mean, in your organization, it is all right. I mean, absolutely, it doesn't matter to organizations, but older organizations have this problem that they're seasoned with that habits.
Sir, our organization is 65 years old, sir.
Yeah, madam. Yeah, madam.
65 years old. But yet we are using the sensitivity training a lot to bring about change.
Correct, madam.
Small groups, we use it. We put them as champions and we are getting it across.
Right.
So the next is the survey feedback approach. So how do you use questionnaires to identify discrepancies among the members with having different perceptions, and then have discussions, and then deliberations, and then sort it out and arrive at remedies and move ahead. So this becomes little more structured, documented, and then process consultation, whereby you hire a consultant who will come study about your organization, have discussion, and then find out what are the changes that has to be brought out, who will be with the people who would be involved into it, and then navigate through the process of change. And then team building. Build up good teams who would be identified as the change agent champions, to increase their trust and openness, so that be able to achieve it. And then intergroup development. So this is mainly to change the attitudes, the stereotypes, what we discussed 2 classes before, and the perceptions what people have of each other. So all those, it has to be eliminated. So for that we have something called Johari window. I think all of us would be familiar with Johari window.
Yes,
ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, it is available online. Are you aware of it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
It is
We are aware
available
about.
online. So you can very well use it within your department, within your organization, and use the 2 techniques: ask feedback and give feedback. So seek feedback from others so that it will help to improve upon yourself. If they have not perceived you as you think you are, talk to them and explain why you did so, what was the reason behind it, and the purpose, so that people will really understand it. So that's very, very important. And then appreciative inquiry. So instead of looking for problems and fixing it, you try to identify the strengths, the unique qualities, and build upon that, so that problems will automatically be taken care, and it helps to improve the performance. So these are the 6 powerful OD techniques which are available. So whichever we think is appropriate to the kind of change that we are likely planning to bring about, we can adopt that, and it would be always better to go in for a combination of methods, using 2 methods. So maybe like you can go in for a survey, and then you can go in for a sensitivity training, or you go in for a survey and then you go for appreciative inquiry. So like that, we can go in for a combination of these methods, so that it will be effective. So these are the points that I thought I should discuss with you. So I thought the rest of the time we will take it up the case for discussion, because it's a beautiful case about a nurse in a hospital, how she wants to bring about change, what she identified, what were the difficulties she was facing. Is that fine, friends?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, madam.
Yes.
മര്യാദക്കിരിക്ക മര്യാദക്കിരിക്കാൻ ചേച്ചി വഴക്കൂറിയുന്ന ചേച്ചി ഇവനെ എല്ലാത്തിനും കാരണം ചേച്ചി
Ma'am, some disturbance is coming, ma'am.
Not from my end, sir. It's not from my end.
The participant.
Yes, ma'am. Somebody have unmuted. Somebody have muted. So now problem is solved. Ma'am. Thank
Yes.
you.
Yes. Thank you. So shall we take up the case for discussion? So can I request one of the participants to present a summary of the case, maybe for a minute or 2, and then we will take it up the 2 questions for discussion.
Madam, can I?
Yes, sir. Most welcome.
Yeah, madam, this case actually, I mean, I personally liked it much because it, first of all, this Barbara, who has worked 20 years as a registered nurse and in EMC department. Now she has a transition to general surgery unit, and within a month she could see a lot of things which she was used to. She was actually was having an like in previous post, she had a very helping and effective team cultured team related culture. But when she came to this GSU, so a lot of challenges within a month she could feel that there is a this employee related, administrative related, and organizational level lot of issues, and on top of it there is a lot of attrition, front to I mean nobody, senior junior gap, and so many things she faced. And on top of it, there was a due to global economic scenario, the organization itself has taken decision that they can't recruit new, and also they can't but there was a budgetary restriction on that. So even if within 5 months, within that month 5 people were supposed to leave, so there was a staff shortage. So all these things, there was absolutely what I believe, there was a cultural conflict which she was used to with in 20 years. All of a sudden she felt in a problem. Moreover, when she took this managerial post, she couldn't see, even if she wanted to work for a longer time, but then maybe within 1 month she couldn't figure out what was the actually how to handle it. That was the for me, I mean, I could guess that was the problem with her. Right, madam. Madam, not audible,
Ma'am,
not audible.
not audible, ma'am.
Minimize the noise. I muted the mic.
Yes, now audible, ma'am.
Yes.
Now audible.
So like the previous previous hospital that she worked, EMU, and if you look at GSU, there were two contrasting factors or dimensions that was happening. Say like in EMU, it was the level of satisfaction or people leaving the organization, turnover was all very, very less. But whereas here, it was all high when compared to it. And like people are like, it was more like at GSU, complaining, blaming, power, politics, favoritism being played, and then confrontation. Always, for whatever you say, there would be a few who are there to immediately retaliate against you. So all those are high here, which she has not experienced during the earlier role in which she was in. That she found it very difficult, different, and a little bit difficult also to manage. And then more it was about the system of communication. So there was not much open communication, and transparency she found was not there. The lack of cooperation, trust among the staff members, lack of acknowledgement. Say when someone is extending a help for you, we don't lose anything by telling a thank you, or if we have missed something, that is, we don't lose anything by telling sorry, right? So these are small things, but it really matters a lot at the workplace. So small gestures like this, a smile, a nod, all this, they are very, very powerful. The non-communication techniques, they are very powerful. So that was again missing here. And then like it was the entire environment was something, it had a feeling of too much of pressure, because they'll have to take care of more patient decisions relating what has to be done to the patients. Of course, shortage of staffs and no transparency in the review and reward process. That's more important. And there was no clarity in also the delegation and scheduling of the duty that was given for them. It was a little bit haphazard. So that really is difficult for a job of this kind of nature. So that is one end. And on the, you also had, like, there are multiple interpersonal as well as intergroup conflicts in the unit. So each one trying to put forth their views, creating favoritism, more of difference of opinions, like I know better, you know better, I am senior, you are senior, between the older and the younger people over there. And especially nurses, it's like the people with whom they will have to interact are plenty, or number quite a lot. And the care for minute details that they'll have to look into, patients who are very critically sick or ill, all those apart from that adds up pressure on them. And people are different when they are interacting with different departments, with different teams. So all those, it really hits hard on their head. So this.
But madam, one more thing also.
Yes, sir.
One more thing also, which I could feel that, this role change, she was used to for 20 years as a nurse, but when there is a role change within 1 month, so I mean, personally, on my experience, like your second question was that whether she is a good, rightly chosen. I feel like I have a friend who was a good surgeon. I had a friend who was a good surgeon. Person, he got into an administrative post. So
That's
what
very
happens,
difficult.
actually, he's not a good administrator.
Exactly.
So in the process, what happened? The organization lost a good surgeon and created a bad administrator. So this internal promotion has also this problem. Like internal promotion, people know her. She's been to for 20 years as a nurse. So just nursing and got into a managerial post where a lot of problems are there. So for her to handle the situation, and if an outsider will come and at that position without any bias, without any prejudice, without any kind of looking through her lens, will not be a problem. So this somehow there will be, it is quite obvious that when she'll get a promotion internally and with a role change within 1 month, all these things, it will be difficult to handle for her. I think so in that sense.
That's true. That's very true, sir. That's very true. So when we give that role change, it's very important to assess whether the person would be able to take up that role and deliver the best. So that's very, very important to assess the capability. That's what they say in performance management. They say just because you are doing well in the current role in which you are, in the current job, what you have been doing it for 5 years or 10 years, you have been doing exceedingly well, no doubt about it. But it doesn't guarantee that you would be able to give a similar level of performance in a job that is higher to what you have been doing now. At a different job, at a higher level job, you cannot expect the person to give the same performance as he was doing in this earlier job. That's why they say when you are in performance appraisal, they normally look for the performance appraisal of the employee, reviewing and providing feedback about the job, what they have accomplished over a particular period of time. But they never give you potential appraisal. They never do. They hardly do potential appraisal, because potential appraisal is very, very important. Only in potential appraisal, they will try to relate and see you're doing this job. If I'm going to give you an additional responsibility, does she or he have the capability to do that job effectively? That becomes a very big question mark. So the superior will have to assess the capability of the employee to do a job at a higher level. Does she have all the required skill sets or the competence to do it? And only after due assessment, consultation and discussion is what it has to be done. Without that, it will literally fail. This has happened. This has happened in many places I have seen. So I'm good in teaching, it's fine, but I'm not so good in administrator. If I'm given administrative job, I'll miserably fail that. And my passion is research. So when I'm given administrator, I don't a kind of job, I don't think I'll be able to fairly do well in that. So what suits that particular individual, what they are good in, is what we need to make them strong. Like how we have the classical cartoon, a school for everyone. So where the monkey, the ducks, the swans, the fish, dog, cat, everything they had a school where they were teaching all the animals to do everything. Running, jumping, climbing trees, all those. So monkey will climb tree, the best, the fast. But when you ask it to walk, will it be able to? So ducks, they can swim very fast in water. But when you ask them to walk, their webbed feet will get hurt. So it doesn't.
True.
So what best suits one is what we need to do that. So not we cannot make everyone good at everything. What they are capable of, that's why I said focus on the strengths. So when you focus on the strengths and make them become stronger in that particular area, the weakness would be taken care by those strengths. Just leave the weakness. When you start focusing on the weakness, what they are good at, even that they will fail. That's a very classical story. It's available. You just read that. I'm very fascinated with that story. I always use it in my training sessions.
Yeah, like somebody will evaluate fish for climbing a tree. The fish
Exactly.
will always fail. Fish will always fail.
True. Always fail. That's very true, sir.
Yeah.
So that's very, very important to recognize and appreciate the differences and accept it. The moment we are not accepting, that becomes the that starts the downfall, I'll say.
Madam, in this case, actually, case study, they should have hired, I think so, they should have hired somebody from outsider, because she, all in a sudden role change, she was a very good nurse. In the process, they could have compensated or they would have rewarded something else to her in her domain. But then bringing to a place where within 1 month, she could really sort it out, it will be difficult for them, for her to handle it.
Exactly. Very true, sir. So at times such mistakes are likely to happen in organizations. Such mistakes are likely to happen in organizations, sir.
Yes, sir, madam.
Yes. Sir. So shall we take up the first question? Can I hear your viewpoints on that?
Actually, I answered the second question. That's the reason I said maybe was she good, choice for the position. So that's what.
Just for the position.
Yeah. She's a good employee, having a lot of experience and all these things. But to give a position or other promotion in that context, with that kind of a complicated situation, and with limited exposure or rather training, so it was not a right choice at that point of time, I think.
At that point of time, very well said, sir. If the situations were similar to how it was at EMU, then she would have been able to manage. But here it's an entirely different culture. The entirely different culture with lots of problems also. So with that and the kind of nature she is, she found it difficult to navigate and manage.
Yeah, moreover, she could have given as an assistant post, or for that matter, supporting the manager. So she, all of a sudden, she became the manager, and
Yes.
that's the point also.
That's the point. That's very true, sir. Very true. And then so.
And
What
the
are
first question, what you said, within 1 month, she could identify the gaps in the GSU, and she could observe all these things are fine. She did well in identifying those gaps, but then
Yes.
how to handle it was a tough task.
It's a tough task and it needs time. You just cannot expect certain things to happen overnight. Like how at the top people will expect overnight everything has to be set. That's not possible, because we are dealing with people. We are dealing with
Correct.
people, and each one, they have to be handled or managed in their own way. We'll have to give them that space. We call it as, we'll have to give them that space so that they understand. You take them gradually through the process of change. That's very important, and we need to give time for the process of change to happen. It just cannot happen overnight. That has to be that everyone has to remember. And giving a senior role within 1 month of she joining GSU, that itself will create lots of differences or different people, among those who have been working there for a long period of time. Why not me? Why she?
Correct.
That will add, that's like adding fuel to the fire.
And moreover, there is a lot of restriction. I mean, budgetary, there is no budget allocation, no
Yes.
new recruitments, even if there is a staff shortage. So that is a critical juncture, and you are giving with a lot of restriction and to a post. I guess they wanted to fire her.
It's not like they, it could be, or they failed to understand all this. So certain things, when it's like what I said, what the strengths or weakness of an organization than ourselves, someone else from outside is what, when they make a thorough study, we are able to identify that.
Correct. True, madam.
So we miss to identify all those and understand all those. That's very important. And that's why we always do an audit, a third-party audit, someone from external who comes, studies the systems and processes, and then giving a feedback for us. That's very important, and it really helps. So we normally conduct an academic audit once in 2 years, and it has been very helpful for us.
Right, madam. Right.
So that's nice points that came across the case for discussions, and it's like collaborating with each other, seeking emotional support, developing mutual and social commitments. That's also important, so that in such a profession, it really helps people to be along with you. That's very important. Creating a collaborative environment to work. That's very important. Yes. So thank you, friends. Hope you found the session interesting, useful. You had learnings as well as takeaways.
Yeah.
So
Thank you very much.